Hey guys, it's Ganondorf and welcome back to my channel. Today I've got another build guide for you guys, and a lot of people have been asking for a human build, right? And I've been kind of resistant because humans kind of suck, right? A lot of people think humans suck. I'm kind of in that same boat. There's a couple different things that you can do to make a human really fun, and I'll go into that here more in detail. Real quick, if you're not familiar with this series, first things first, I'm going to go over the build, how it works, some tips on how to play it, and then at the end I'm going to go through a tier list and I'm going to rank the build from everything from PvP, etc, etc. So maybe if you're interested, you can skip to the end, look and see how it stacks up, and then come back and watch the rest of the video. Either way, I'm breaking a cardinal rule that I like to follow with Mortal Online, and that rule is play the game for the game that it is today, not the game that it will be. And I made this character in preparation for Elementalism. Elementalism is not in the game yet, and I will show you guys some stuff that I've done researching MO1 and stuff like that, and I'll get into that in detail here in a minute. But I made a human fat mage for one reason and one reason only, and it's this Clade right here. I don't know if you can see, I think you can see my mouse. Tactician. 50% reduced damage to allies, 50% reduced damage from allies. Now it currently doesn't work on AoE, which is unfortunate, but Henrik has confirmed many times that it will be fixed specifically for Elementalism. And the entire idea behind this build is I want to drop literal nukes on the battlefield indiscriminately all over the place, and not punish my team as bad as I would be if I was doing it on any other fat mage. So I made this character a little bit like in preparation, not really serious. Ended up really enjoying the fat mage because the mana is insane. You can see I wrote Mana King here. This build has 258 mana, which is insane. That's 100 more mana than my standard Dex Mage builds. And that's really fun. You hit also super hard, you've got really high intelligence. So I'll go through the build here real quick and just kind of talk as I go. It's a human, half and half Sardukan and whatever this one is, Sadoan I think. If you are following this build, that is the way to go. If you are playing a human and you might not want to commit to the obese lifestyle, because obese is you become a wheelchair, I would say you go full Tindremic. Full Tindremic will actually get you the same stat lineup. You'll actually have more points to play with, but since you're obese, it doesn't matter. Those points are just a wash. You lose so many points from dexterity and so many points from constitution that the extra points you have don't matter. And you can, what ends up happening is you put a little bit more points into your height so that you get a little bit more health because you just have points to burn. So that's something that I do like about this build, like the Augmere fat mages and stuff. You're so short, you can't see shit, right? But on this guy, you're up on a horse and you're decently tall. Tall is bad in some situations. You get hit more, it's easier to get hit by spells and stuff like that. Really doesn't bother me too much. I really like being tall. I really like being able to see the battlefield. And my goal, again, is to drop nukes on the battlefield indiscriminately and screw over the enemy team more than I screw my own team, right? This is the tree all the way up to level 20. This human, the other thing that I really like about them is they have Northerner and Southerner. And people are sleeping on these two abilities, right? I'm theory crafting right now because this isn't in the game, but I've talked with MO1 vets about how hot it can get, how heat damages you over time, destroys your stamina regeneration. Cold, extreme cold does the same thing, damages you over time. This character will be controlling the weather. It will be manipulating everything. So these two abilities will put human mages into a league of their own for Elementalism, right? You can see I also have the con one and the dex one. You don't need these two. I prefer to build my character to be as combat effective as possible. I don't care about profession skills, but if you get to like level 18 and you don't want the extra dex and you don't want the extra con, you can put those into the profession trees. 10 lore is pretty nutty. 50 extra profession points can be pretty nutty. Or maybe you want discounts on your stuff. You could also get away with not having the mental buff. You will That's another thing that I'd like to talk about. Is Henrik has talked about a couple buffs coming to humans. They're reworking their war cry. Their war cry could end up being really good, so that'd be something. If you're future-proofing this build, maybe you're watching this in the future, re-look at the war cry. The war cry currently sucks, and they're also going to add a new cleric perk and maybe even a quick draw. Both of those were suggested. Actually, quick draw was suggested by me. The other cleric perk I don't think is needed, but quick draw would be sheathing and unsheathing your weapon quickly, and I'll talk about that for a second because that's one of the main reasons humans kind of suck, right? Playing the paladin human hybrid, they look really good on paper. You can squeeze a fuck ton into a build, right? And I've romanticized it several times. I've deleted 3 humans over level 18 Clade because I keep romanticizing doing like a paladin human build because it's fun, right? You get in a fight that you get to use your magic and your melee and you use it potently. It just, after the fight, it feels really good. You feel like excellent. But what you very quickly realize is that out of every 10 fights, you get to do that in 1 fight, and the 9 other fights that you got in, you're either a full mage or you're full melee. And you're not doing both because you can't. Because there's a 2-second animation to sheath your weapon and a 2-second animation to unsheath your weapon. So if you want a lesser heal, first you need to make space on your slow character because you're not an Elvarin, sheath your weapon, spend 2 seconds casting, and another 2 seconds pulling your weapon back out to get a mediocre cast because your stats are subpar compared to like a full mage, right? So it just isn't good from an action economy standpoint. It's not good for throughput and stuff like that, and I'll talk about that more when I get into the tier list. But just realize that this is one of the only builds I see for human being actually viable at this moment, right? Damage bonus minus 18%. It's a mage, no surprise there. Health is actually pretty respectable, 182. Stamina doesn't really matter. You're a fat mage. It took me 2 weeks to get my momentum skill up to 100 because I just never ran anywhere. Mana is insane. You're the mana king. You have so much mana. You can cast 12 fulminates before you go home. It's fucking, it's glorious. And a lot of people don't know that mana pool, the size of your mana pool dictates how fast your mana regeneration comes in. It's a percent-based thing. So the bigger your mana pool is, the faster your mana regeneration is. And I'll talk about that when I get to PvE and stuff like that as well. So this build currently has full points, full tamer tree. It's got everything you need for creature control. What I'm playing this build for right now is I'm bounty hunting on this build. This build is so good for bounty hunting. You can get a big pet, go into town, gank people. You can leave your pets in town, roam around as a mounted mage. If they're a footy and you catch them in the open, drop their horse and then just electrocute them in the field, right? You're fat Zeus. When Elementalism comes out, just drop all the taming crap. Drop all the creature control, drop all that stuff, rotate it into taming. It's really good. For profession skills, right? Profession skills, you've got your taming suite, so you've got all the creature lores, Reptilia, Avis, all that stuff. Management is really important for being able to use big pets and store a lot of them in your equerry. I also have full armor crafting and full pet crafting on here, right? I don't personally use that. I think I have scribing and a couple other things, but if this is your only character, you need custom armor sets crafted for you, and you need, well, kind of. It's pretty easy to get really good armor on this character. That's one of the really nice flexibility things I'll talk about. But being able to craft your own ideal armor set, this guy here that I have here in the middle is such a good set. Horn scale, mercenary chest, and the ranger on everything else with horn scales or kill scales or whatever, plus silk, and then a big ass tower shield. Again, future-proofing this build, tower shields are going to get nerfed. You're not going to be able to ride with a horse on them, but you'll still be able to use a standard shield. Still really fucking good, right? But for now, the meta is tower shield on your back on a horse. Super good. Then metallurgy and pet equipment crafting. Being able to make steel horse armor is extremely important. This character lives and dies by their horse. If your horse dies, you basically die. You can use the little blocking skill that you have to kind of parry yourself and keep yourself alive if you have teammates that are actively coming to peel for you. But realize that if your horse is dead, you're probably going to die in the next 30 seconds. Right? It's just a downside of the build. If you're going to go into a dungeon with this character, say this is your only character, you're going into a dungeon, highly recommend you bring a pet with you. Your pet can kind of function as your peeler, right? If you have a good enough, beefy enough pet, a big brown bear, a Campion, a shore prowler or something, maybe even a high-level terror bird, you can peel good footies off with you. You just got to be careful because they get picked real easy from longbows at range. It's really easy to lose those pets, but that's the only way that I'd suggest going into a dungeon with this build, and this build will even get worse when you lose your pets and Elementalism comes out. There's a lot of Elementalism spells you can't cast inside. So that's a huge detriment to this build, is going into dungeons, you're slow. I have one point of contention. A lot of fat mages, mounted mages, will put their points into strength instead of dexterity. That is an option. I feel that the movement speed getting up to 390 is actually respectable. I can keep up with my group. I don't like being the super fat guy that requires basically everybody to walk so that I can keep up with them. I hate that. Being able to manipulate your horse, it doesn't make a insane difference, right? Super high dexterity characters, when I get on my dex mage or whatever and get on my horse, the horse feels extremely snappy and responsive. It doesn't feel that good on this, but that 48 dex does make a difference. That 48 dex also gives you more primary points in things that you care about than the strength would. Strength would allow you to go into a weapon skill like dagger. Say you just hate pets, you don't want to use creature control, you don't want to go bounty hunting or do anything like that. You could go into strength, get a dagger, get a spear, something like that, so you could parry and kind of fight back. It would increase your carry weight and stuff, but generally you get more points in things that you care about with dexterity. So that's the main build there. Go ahead and screenshot that if you have to. You can screenshot this as well. This is the MO1 Elementalism school, and I broke it down into several categories. We got AoE in the top left. You can see that the biggest and baddest thing on here is AoE, and Henrik has confirmed a lot of these spells are coming back. Tornado's coming back, meteor showers coming back. Pets are getting changed, they're coming back, but they're not going to be these protectors. And then you got crowd control, utility, there's an AoE heal, and then being able to control the weather, right? The worst I heard about from an MO1 vet was there's a spot on the map that's so hot it does 15 damage per second to you, right? If you're wearing heavy armor, 15 damage a second destroys your stamina regeneration. The weather will be a battle, especially if you're sieging, you're doing TC, stuff like that. I won't dwell on this too much because this is MO1 stuff, but I did confirm with Henrik that a lot of these spells are coming back. They've already announced that they have 45 spells on the books for Elementalism coming, so huge update coming down the pipe. All right, Fat Zeus. We got tier list time, right? So I always skip PvP. I'm going to skip PvP. We'll talk about that later. PvE. This is an A tier build. Why it's not S tier? You can do trolls with this build. So you can take a turtle. It's really easy. You can do any troll in the game. You heal it yourself. You just go solo it. Take a turtle, take a low-level horse, carry that carcass back to the house, carry everything back to the house on you. You don't even need horse bags, right? A lot of you guys don't even think like that, but yeah, you don't even need horse bags. Just hop on your horse, hop on your horse, hop on your horse. Is it risky? Sure, it's risky, but I mean, you can make a lot of money doing that. The reason it's not S tier is because you can't go into dungeons reliably. If you don't have a pet, you become a liability to your team in team fights, because this build realistically is not online yet. Elementalism is not out. Maybe when Elementalism comes out, you'll be able to do crazy things, right? But we already have a taste of necromancy, so that was one thing I didn't talk about. But in the build, animism is a fill-in for necromancy. Some people get confused by that. The website just hasn't been updated yet. But you have animism at 87, so you have atrophy. You don't need mental leech. You have everything else. You can wall bang with it. You can use miasma. You can choke people out. You can pull loot through walls. Super good for bounty hunting. I've gotten a ton of kills, ton of bounty collections with necromancy, right? So for PvE, it's great, right? I had a run in Rizar Dungeon the other night on my Dex Mage, and I did an Ossurge, and I hit 15 people with an Ossurge in a hallway. I did like 700 damage in one cast, right? This character is going to be that on steroids. There's an ability that is a flaming rock that bounces off of walls. Imagine launching that down a hallway full of enemies. You're going to just demolish. But for now, you're a big liability. For PvE, you can't go into dungeons. That's a liability. Solo play. You know, I will also put this in A tier, because if you're playing the build at its highest level, you got Steel Horse Armor, Desert Horse, or Jotun, depending on what you're doing. You've got enough reagents to sustain yourself. You've got all your skills leveled up. You've got all that stuff. It is insanely hard to kill you right now. Mounted combat is seeing this resurgence, and it's not because mounted combat is good. It's because mounted mages are too good, right? Mounted mages are too good right now. They deserve a small nerf. And I could talk about what I would do, but it's not going to matter. Right now, they're too good. So as a solo, you can use pets to do basically any mobs in the game. You are near unkillable unless you get caught out by 2 mounted archers or something like that. It's very hard for you to die. You only really die on this build if you play stupidly. And it'll take only a couple deaths before you realize, wow, that was dumb. I shouldn't have done that. Right? 1v1. 1v1. I added dueling too, so this is like straight up like real 1v1s. It's B tier, and you know what? It's probably C tier. You will absolutely dumpster footies, like dumpster footies. Unless they have a tree and they pillar up and they pot and they bandage and stuff like that. A good footy can kind of out mana you. Maybe if you whiff a spell or something like that, you can. It just takes a while to kill a footy. It's not really exciting. It's lame for both parties. This build has a lot of downsides. It can be pretty boring to play. It can be pretty boring to play against. A lot of people hate fighting this build, and I understand why. You're a circling shark. It's not like super thrilling gameplay, right? And a lot of people don't respect it. I totally get that. From the 1v1 perspective, though, you'll dumpster footies out in the wild. If you have a pet, you can dumpster footies as well. If you have a really good pet, you can dumpster mages. But if you don't have a pet, you get caught out by a mage, even a dex mage that knows what they're doing. They can literally just spurt your build into nothing. Like if a dex mage is on foot and they're just like spurt, your build is completely offline. You can literally do nothing. If you're I got into a fucking fight at a troll. I'm a fat mage. My opponent is a fat mage. Neither of us had melee skills. Literally couldn't kill each other. There's no way to kill another mage. It's fucking horrible, right? They need to do something. Mental Leech doesn't work, right? If you're listening, Henrik, Mental Leech doesn't work. I've corrupted Mental Leeched into a spurt as fast as I can do it many times, and they can still cleanse it. It's ridiculous. It doesn't fucking work. Mental Leech is garbage. So 1v1, like, it's okay. It's okay. 1vx, 1vx, I'll put in C tier as well. You can survive most fights. Going on a killing spree is not really going to happen. You can kill multiple people. If you're good with your spells, you're efficient, you get your T-lashes out, right? You're Fat Zeus, man. You have lightning at your fingertips. If you have a good pet, you can do that, but you're not going to go... You're not some crazy, like Dex Footy or something that's going to go cutting through people. For dueling, it's F tier. Nobody duels. Offense. Oh, man. It is so good for offense. Your spells hit harder than everybody except for an Ogmere Fat Mage that went full into int. You absolutely slap. You can full double T-lash and kill most footies. Just boom, 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 back to back. It's extremely potent. Your AoEs will be insane. I can show a clip. I've got some B-roll that I'll put in here of me choking people out in their house during construction. It's brutal. Their offensive skills are really, really fucking good. Defense, also S tier. Talked about it a little bit. You can see all the different armors that like I took screenshots wearing or whatever. The meta, how you want to do this is right now your damage taken is mitigated based on the average of not just your chest, but your chest and your shield. Unless you're getting hit in the head or the arms or the legs, if you're getting hit in the chest or the shield, it averages the damage and it's super favorable. So when you build your character, you want to have the heaviest chest piece possible. Everything else, I like to do like Ranger, like Hornscale Silk on everything else, because it's good enough mitigation most of the time, and then I'll get a really heavy shield. And when you have your heavy shield on with this armor weight of 13.7, your mana regeneration as a human is around 50%, and 50% on a massive mana pool is really fucking good. It's really fucking good. You take off your shield, let's say you're not fighting a mounted archer, you're not in danger of getting hit in the back for melee, you take your shield off, leave it in your bag, your mana regeneration jumps up to 75%. That's a fuck ton of mana regeneration. You should not be going in fights if you're managing your shield appropriately, right? So defense, super good. It is extremely hard to kill an offensive or a well geared up fat mage on their horse. Team fights. If you're out in the open, it's S tier. If you're in a dungeon, it's like C tier. So that can't in good conscience put it in S. It's going to be A tier. You add Elementalism too. I hate to like theorycraft, but you add Elementalism too. There's going to be a massive demand for these guys during TC. Having Tactician as well makes you just so much better in a team fight. You're not screwing your team over. They're really good. I mean, if you don't take into consideration dungeons, they're S tier. They're like probably the best guy to have on your team, assuming you have a frontline. Money generation and money usage. Oh man, this is F tier, and you're probably thinking, why the fuck is it S tier or F tier? You can kill trolls and shit. Because this build so heavily relies on your gear to be successful. A decent mounted archer can put basically as much damage into you as you can heal. So if your armor isn't up to snuff, your build isn't, your gear isn't good, you're not wearing good horse armor and stuff like that, it is so much more punishing for you. So to run this build, you got to run steel horse armor, like panzer horse armor, like really good, really expensive stuff. My kit is more expensive than most kits out there. And then if you mix in a pet, oh my god, it's so expensive. You're talking 90 gold for a max level desert horse. You're talking 90 gold for steel horse armor, 15 gold for the spirit box alone, then all the other reagents, including necro stuff. Your gear set, like your armor, custom crafted, made the tower shield, and then a pet on top of it, and a health pot if you want to run that too. It's fucking expensive. The good news is, if you're playing this build right, you should very rarely die. I've been playing this build for about 2 weeks. I think I've had 7 or 8 deaths, playing pretty consistently. I've got 40 bounty collections. I've got 10 more to go until I get my bounty hunter title, and then I'll just keep going because I'm waiting for Elementalism. But yeah, like, you should pretty rarely die. The only way you're really going to die is if you get caught out by a Zerg and you have your heavy horse armor on and they're all naked horse armor, right? Or no horse armor. Utility, absolute S tier. Like, it's pretty obvious. Skill cap, it's like D. It's punishing because it's expensive to run. Your mistakes are financially devastating if you make too many of them back to back. It's a mage, so learning how to play it is a little bit more difficult than learning how to play a footy, I think. Right? I'm not saying that the skill cap is higher or that the skill ceiling is higher. I'm just saying that being a mage in a melee game is generally tough, at least for a new player. So it's D tier. It's not the hardest thing in the world to learn. It's not the easiest thing in the world. Uptime. When pets get trashed, because Elementalism comes out, this build will be online fully the whole time as long as you have a horse. But right now you have pets. When your pets, I'll put it in B, right? We're waiting on Elementalism for this build to really shine. It's still fun right now. You just kind of need a pet to do a lot of stuff unless you're rolling with your buddies. Crafting. You're pigeonholed into armor crafting and pet crafting. When Beast Mastery comes out, which comes out before Elementalism, there'll be a hot minute where you'll probably want to, lean more into the pet crafting stuff, make bear armors and stuff. Maybe this build will be absolutely cracked, right? A lot of people run Mage Tamers, right? I'm not saying that Mage Tamer is bad. I'm just saying that this build is designed to be an Elementalist. you want to be a mage tamer, there's other builds other races you can go that are generally better, but this guy is the Elementalist. He's Fat Zeus, right? PvP, absolute S tier. It is disgustingly good. You're countered by other mages, but who cares? If you're fighting the team fight, your team will be super happy that you have this character. Everybody wants these guys on their side. They're super annoying to fight against. You get a lot of free casting time. If you're smart and you're very situational aware, you can dismount from your horse and up your throughput by 50%, even more. It's just super good. Super good. If you get some crazy AoEs out, you can do fat, crazy damage. It's really, really good at PvP. Right? It's too good. It's skill scan right now. It's too good. It needs a nerf. I think it needs a nerf. Overall, oh, I think it's A tier. It's not noob friendly. It's really expensive to run. It's not. You have to have good game sense to know where not to be putting yourself, right? You avoid high frequently trafficked choke points if you're alone on your horse that costs 180 gold, right? Just being smart about how you play the game. But if you are willing to put in the effort and figure out how to do everything, level up necromancy, get that up, get the spell book full, get everything full. It's up there, man. It's a really good, really fun build. It takes a lot to get online, though. You're going to be casting crawling hands on yourself and leveling up your necromancy, which is expensive, right? Leveling up everything is expensive. Some alternative things, a lot of people like to run Spiritism instead. You could drop blocking, get Spiritism. You could drop points out of advanced creature control down to like 67-ish to still use Terror Birds. Put those, cap off blocking if you want. There's a lot of flexibility in this build. You get a ton. You get 12 primary points in basically everything that you care about because your intellect is so high and your psych is so high. So you have a ton of extra primaries to kind of fuck around with and do whatever you want. So this build is very flexible. It's really, really nice. I do enjoy it a lot, and I'll go through and add some nice clips, and that's about it, guys. Once again, my name is Ganondorn. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a good rest of your night.